Hello everyone, this is Dr. Achal and I welcome you all in our course module titled as Services Marketing. Earlier also we have discussed the concept of the stages of the services product life cycle. Now in our discussion of today's, we will be dealing with a new topic that is all being related with how the product is being developed, what are the important stages which our product has to move in for the development and the launch of a new product. So, the earlier session was all being related wherein we have discussed the concept of the phases and the stages of the development of a not only a new product, but we can say the stages which are or the phases which a product moves in for during the sales history or during its entire sales history which is being seen by the firm. So, it was a concept of the product life cycle, that is especially being related to the services. Now, we know that it is in a graphical portrayal. We have said that the product life cycle is simply can be understood as in a graphical portrayal of the sales history, a distinct phases which the product goes in for, and it represents the sales history of the firm. Just as we human beings have a distinct phases of the life cycle, just as we human being or the animal undergoes in for the distinct phases during their entire life cycle, similarly each and every product they move in for and they go in for the distinct phases and the stages during the entire sales history of the product. That was being discussed in our earlier discourse in our earlier session. Now, in today's discussion we will be dealing with the name and the title, the new topic that is being titled as the development of the new services. So, this is a concept which is altogether a concept being different from the concept that we have discussed, which was being talked of as in a concept of the stages of service, the stages of the product which goes upon in the different kind of phases. So, here the new services development, how the services or why there is a need of development of a new services. We know that when the product is being launched, especially we are limiting our discussion towards the abstractness, because the service offerings they are more being pronounced in terms of the intangibility factor, they are invariable, they are inconsistent, they are perishable, they cannot be stored, inventoried. So, the abstractness, as the abstractness is more being talked of in case of the offerings, but the product is not being sensed in terms of the physical goods. The product is also being understood in the form of the services, in the form of the goods, ideas, deeds, associations, efforts, not only those abstract elements, but the product is also being sensed in the terms of the experiences, the informations, the organizations, the events, the people, all these events or people, all these kind of entities, they together define out the to understand out the concept of the product. So, here we are saying that why there is a need of the development of the new services, or why to move in for the growth and the evolution of the new services. We know that we are living in this very competitive scenario, we are living in this very intense competition. So, as in a service provider, as in a manufacturer, or as in a business organization offering intangible benefits, we have to ensure that we are making out in a personalized approach, we are giving out in a customized approach as distinct from the approach or as distinct from the offering which the rivals are trying to propose in for. So, this is a factor that can be understood to push ourselves or to give an impetus towards the growth of the new sector. There can be other reasons wherein we are experiencing that we as a service provider, we have to expand our territorial base. We have to just not only we have to just, or we can say that in other words, we are just trying to expand our territorial base in terms of the acquisition of the more customers footfall, or that can also be understood in the sense wherein we are adding the more product items in our product line, we are extending the product line. And we know the concept of the product line, that the product line do have certain kind of items which are having a close resemblance with the core offering which the service providers or the manufacturers are trying to go in for. So, here we can take an example, like suppose you are adding different kind of item to the menu that you are trying to propose in your restaurant. That can be in a instance, that can be this is in an instance that can give you an idea that here the product items are being launched and they are trying to extend the item, or they are trying to extend the depth of the product line of your offering. So, either we can just extend the depth or we can just extend the width of the product line by expanding the product line itself. So, they can be any kind of option. We can go in for the technological breakthrough also, innovation can be done. So, we are saying that why there is a need. Yes, there is a need of the growth and the evolution of the new offerings or the new services, because we have to increase the customer database, we have to we have to come out with a unique kind of proposition, we have to give the personalized approach to a chosen target segment, we have to evolve, we have to grow. So, this is a kind of reason. Now, moving to the next slide, this says that how the new services development process moves in for. We know that if the word process is being used, this word process signifies out the fact that we have to move in for the sequential phases. A sequential flow of events has to be taken into consideration for the purpose of achieving a final result or the final output. So, the development of the new services, it is being sensed with the formulation and with the crafting of the very first step, and the very first step is all being related with the idea generation and its screening. So, the idea generation, how to generate or how to just pull up, how to garner up out the ideas or the thought process can be evoked upon. We know that there can be two alternatives or two alternative options to go in for. Either the service provider or the manufacturer, they may just tap in to have internal sources which are very much being reliable enough, because we know that the internal sources of the information, they are being provided, the inputs are being provided from the organization itself, or conversely to it, we can have an external variable or the external sources over whom we have to check out its reliability before gathering or before pulling in for their information and using it out in our establishment to make a newer kind of offering. Now, before discussing the concept of two of the phases, that is the two of the sources of the information, we know that every organization, they have a certain kind of structure to talk of. Every establishment or every organization, it is being composed of a certain kind of a structure, and those structures are being defined in terms of either the hierarchy structure, that is senior subordinate relationship structure, or we can have a process kind of relationship structure, we can have an authoritative kind of relationship of structure. So, all these are phases which is being seen, or all these are strategies of defining the organizational structure of your organization. So, this organizational structure, as we have said, that is being composed of the senior or subordinate kind of hierarchy of the relationship structure, or the relationship structure, it is being seen in the phase of the senior subordinate relationship. Then, keeping that particular fact into mind, we can say that every organization structure is being composed of the different levels of the management, and these levels of the management are being sensed, they are being discussed in association with the top level. We can have a middle level of management, we can have a lower or the operating level of the managers. Now, as the word top level of the management says the fact that here the managers, the people who are holding out the topmost position in your establishment, they are authorized, they are being set to take care of the needs of the planning process, for the growth and for the creation of good innovative factor in your establishment. They are only being taken care of, or they are taking care of the critical factors which are imperative enough towards the growth and the productivity and which are imperative enough towards building the growth and the productivity of your establishment. So, the people who are holding out the topmost position, like the people are holding out the position of the CEOs, Chief Executive Officers, we are having the people who are working as an MD, Managing Directors are there, General Managers are there. So, these people are being accounted for, they are being said to draft out, to create out suitable plans. Now, why these plans are being needed? We know that every organization, every establishment have to go in for the plans, not only the establishment of the organization, even if the different functional areas, the different units and the sections that you are creating, they do have to undergo, they do have to fulfill out with the task of creation, with the task of the drafting out the good plan in their own functional areas. So, limiting our discussion towards the top management, here the top management are drafting out the plans which are crucial enough towards the growth and the prosperance of the whole establishment, towards fulfilling out the objectives of the corporate, which are very much being corporate in nature, towards accomplishing the objectives and the goals which are worthy enough to move in your establishment or to move in your organization, adding on with the distinct characteristics as compared to the characteristics which the other rival organizations are holding in this competitive scenario. So, they are planning out in their own way, and these plans that they are drafting, they are creating, they are being related within a future course of action, because we know that whenever the word plan is being made, they are being said, it is being related within a future course of action. We know that we cannot just eliminate the risk and the uncertainties that are being evolved or that are revolving in this future, but what we can do as a versatile and proactive manager working in any of the capacity, here we are saying that the top managers, the people who are holding out the top position, the top cadres, they are framing out the plans proactively by making certain kind of assumptions, and those assumptions are premises. And how to build up the premises, how to build up an effective premises that will be serving as an edifice towards raising out the good plans. That is basically a intuitive process, not only intuitive process, we can say that is basically a scientific approach that is being undertaken by the top level of the people who are holding out the top position. Because plans cannot be just made on the intuitions, they cannot be made on the trial and basis approach. We have to deploy certain kind of strategies that are having a scientific temperament. So, here the top people holding out the top position, they are drafting out the plans, and those plans are being tailor made, they are being mediated enough by the middle level of the managers, and the middle people, the middle level of the managers, they are trying to execute the plans that are being formulated at the top level with the operative people, with the people who are holding out the operative conditions. So, the operative managers or the middle or the lower level of managers, they will be trying to implement out the strategies or the plans that are being drafted by the top level. In turn, they are being communicated with the middle level of managers, and the middle level of managers, they are trying to segregate and bifurcate it in their own functional areas, in their own establishment, in their own creation of the units and the sections, and further it is being translated, it is being diffused to the lower level for the implementation in the different functional areas. So, what I want to say is that working in any of the capacity, either the organizational structure which we are witnessing, and we are seeing that it is being composed of the top level or the middle level or the lower level, that is not in a hard first characteristic that is being seen in each and every establishment. Either depending upon the availability of the resources, we can have in a certain kind of bifurcations, we can have in a upper top, we can have in a middle top, we can have in a upper middle, we can have lower middle, certain kind of bifurcations can be done. So, here the planning aspect that is being done by the people holding out the topmost position, they are making out the plans, and the execution part is being taken care of by the lower people. So, this is also what I want to say is that how to generate out the ideas. We were saying that for the purpose of development of the new services, we have to generate out the ideas. So, here we have discussed we have discussed this particular concept of the hierarchy relationship structure which an establishment sees upon, or which an establishment faces upon. It is only being discussed to make you aware that these are the people who are working in your organization, working in the topmost position, working in the middle one, or working in the operative one. They are the people, especially the topmost position of the people. They are authorized to give out a greater pool of information that should be reliable enough to give you a greater appeal towards moving in for the new development of a new offerings. Now, there can be certain other sources. In the internal, we are saying that we are experiencing the different functional areas. We know that every establishment having a different functional area that is being seen in terms of the production manager. We are having a finance manager, we are having a HR manager, we are having a research and development manager. Now, in case of the bigger organizations, it is very feasible enough to have the creation of the separate research and development manager, or the department is being created. But what to say about those units or those organizations who are having or who are operating at a limited capacity, who are operating at a very smaller size. So, for those organizations who are operating on a very smaller size, it is preferable enough for them to have an inbuilt R&D department in their own functional area. The production manager will have an inbuilt research and development manager. Similarly, the finance manager will have an inbuilt research and development area taking care of the new needs. Similarly, the marketing manager will have an area who is being authorized enough to give out inputs, to sense out the inputs, to gather the inputs from the customers, from the other salesmen people, and giving out the inputs towards the creation of a newer kind of offerings. So, these are the sources which are serving as an internal sources, and from here your establishment or your service provider can be able to garner out a good pool of information working in the form of the internal way. Similarly, people, I have said that not only the people who are holding at the top position, the people who are working the middle level, working in the capacity of the different functional areas, functional areas of the holding out the position of the different managers. Similarly, the people who are working at your establishment in the lower levels, that is like suppose in your marketing area, in your marketing department, you are taking the help of the salesman. So, we know that the salesman or the production manager is trying to take the help of the accountant or the finance manager. Now, so we can say that the deployment and the inputs which these people are giving, working at the capacity of the lower levels, their information, their feedback, their inputs are also worthy enough to consider for the purpose of fulfillment or for the purpose of formulation of a newer ideas, or for the purpose of garnering out the newer ideas, because they are in direct touch with the customers. There are certain kind of categories of the offerings which demands for or which warrants for to have a direct association with the customers. And we know that we have already discussed out the fact that they may be turned out to define out the category of the pure services. In case of the pure services, we know that it demands for to have an association of the presence of not only the service provider, but the customers do play a proactive role to have a greater experience of the services which the providers are trying to deal in the market area. So, it means there should be a presence or there should be a direct association between the service provider and the consumer. Then only the effective delivery and the effective assimilation of the services which are in the form of the pure services can be made to the target audience. Similarly, those services which are having a greater credence, which are more being pronounced in terms of the qualitative factor, they do warrant to have a simultaneous production and the consumption. Because here the consumers and the customers, they are acting proactive, they are playing a proactive role to consume and to assimilate the experiential benefits which the providers are trying to float in the market area. Because the services are abstract, they are more being understood in terms of the experiential benefits. The tangibility factor is almost negligible. So, that is why it is a very challenging factor for the provider or for the business service organization to take the help of the tangibility clues to give a more or to accentuate out the intangibility benefits which they are trying to propose to the target audience. So, here we are saying that the internal sources may be in the form of the people who are holding out the top position, the people who are holding and working in the middle level, they are the people who are holding out the operative conditions, and they will be giving out you a reliable and authentic information because you are working in their establishment, and they are many a times the people who are working in at the operative level, they are in direct touch with the customers. So, what the customers, what the consumers are feeling, how their aspirations are changing. We know that each and every customer, each and every consumer, they are being talked of in the sense of the composition of the different psychographic features. They are holding out the different psychographic features. Their ideas, their opinions, their beliefs, their thought process are different. We can say that even if you as a consumer, as a customer, you are living in a one particular family system, you are a member of a same family system, but your siblings will be having different aspirations, their motivation, their expectations will be different from you as a consumer. So, these psychographic variables being talked of in the sense of the motivation, the perception, the attitudes, the personality, the learning factor, they are different from each set of individuals. So, in case of the service sector, the provider have to just ensure that they are rather than standardizing, giving them a standardized services, they are giving them a personalized approach, they are customizing out their offerings to meet out the expectations, the aspirations of the people whom they are trying to target upon. Now, we have said that this personalization, the customization, many times they are creating a challenge for the marketers because it involves, or they have to just ensure that it warrants to have a preemptive quality check. We are not able to standardize, but how to go in for the uniformity, how to go in for the standardization. In case of the services, either that offering can be standardized to a certain extent with the use of the technological gadgets. Like we can take an example. Suppose you have visited to a bank and you are trying to take the help of the vending machines, I mean the ATM, and for the purpose of giving you a faster service, you have installed, the banking institution have installed a machine that is more, definitely the machine will be automated in nature, that is having a more caliber in terms of the greater functionality benefit. It is giving you a greater access at a faster pace. So, that can be seen. So, here we are saying that the standardization can be achieved to a certain extent by the service provider by using out the machines or the technological devices, and with that particular use they will be able to give you a standardized kind of offerings. Now, this is an internal source. The internal source will be reliable and worthy enough. Similarly, there is an external source of tapping in for the information to generate out the ideas for the development of a newer product. Now, here the external sources may be in the form of certain kind of customers, definitely the customers, not certain kind of, definitely the customers who are moving for the purchase process of your products, the consumers who are in being referred to as direct end users, who are purchasing and you are consuming at the same time, and we know that in case of the services, the production and the consumption, they are happening at the same point of time. We are not able to inventorize, we are not able to store it at a later point of time. So, the customers, the consumers, the competitors, even if the competitors who are operating in the competitive scenario, working as direct rivals, they are having a tendency to give you a certain kind of inputs, or how they are trying to float out their strategies in terms of creating and drafting or just redrafting the 7 P's. You as a service provider, you have to just have a proactive approach that how the your rivals who are in direct acting as a direct rivals, or rivals who are in indirect way, they are giving you a threat, they are giving you a challenge, that you are trying to sense out their strategies, and in lieu of that strategies you are trying to defend out your own way by crafting and by developing out your 7 Ps in a more improvised form. Because in case of the services, we are seeing that when the new services are being launched or when the services are being launched before on a full-fledged basis, it is being tested enough. In case of the physical commodities also, when the commodities are being launched the market area before on a full-fledged basis, it is being tested on a pilot basis. It is being launched in a chosen market segment. So, here also in case of the services or the offerings which are abstract in nature, the providers are trying to measure the effectiveness and the response of the customers by introducing in a selected chosen market area. Now, that duration of the time of the testing, that is pilot testing, and moving in for the commercialization stage on a full-fledged basis should be very much being shortened enough, because we know that the life cycle of the services, they are shorter as compared to the life cycle of the physical commodity. And here when the product is being undergoing their efficacy, their effectiveness is being checked, it is being monitored by moving in for or by launching in for a certain chosen kind of target market area which is being set as in a pilot testing. You have to just ensure that their responsiveness and their effectiveness cannot be copied by your imitators, by your rivals, because the rivals will be they will be just active enough to imitate or to replicate the things that you are trying to launch the market area on a full-fledged basis. They will be trying to just imitate it out in the pilot testing phase. So, you as a proactive marketer, you have to just ensure that your pilot testing stage should be very much being shorter enough before launching it, your offering on a full-fledged basis in the commercialization stage. So, we are seeing that the external sources are there, they are operating in the environment, and you as a provider, you also have to tap in for the external sources which may be acting as a good way to generate out the informations for the development of the newer areas or the newer exploration of the newer areas of the services. And here the competitors, the customers, even if the different stakeholders are operating in the environment and they are being sensed in the way of the the government agencies, they are operating in the environment, they are very much being interested enough to know out your functionality. Now, why the government agencies are very much being interested? We know that they are acting as one of the stakeholder in the society, and they are interested enough to know out your functionality because you as a marketer, you are having a capability to give them revenue. You are giving them revenue in terms of by paying out the taxes. You are generating income for them by paying out the suitable kind of octroi duties, the taxes you are paying. So, that is why the government agencies are very much being interested enough to know out your functionality, but how you as a marketer, you are trying to operate in this competitive environment, and how much quantum and the magnitude of the benefit that you are reaping in your establishment, you are trying to earmark to fulfill out the obligations of the society at large, being said as meeting out the responsibility of the corporate social responsibility. And we know that every bigger organization, every bigger tycoons, they are not only trying to reap out the benefits and for the purpose of fulfillment of their growth and the productivity, but they are also fulfilling out the objectives of the philanthropy. We can take the example of that the philanthropist, the great philanthropist Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata. So, recently we have heard the news that he is no more here in this world, but he was an educationist, he was a great business magnate, he was a biggest tycoon, but apart from these qualities and the characteristics that he has, he was having out in his personality, he was being recognized, he is being recalled because of the philanthropy attitude that he is holding and that he has proposed in the market area. So, we as a provider, we as a manufacturer, we can have any kind of, we can have two kind of sources as we have discussed. Either we can have an internal way of generating out the sources of the information very much being suitable enough to go in for the development of the new services. Either we can rely on the external sources, and the external sources may be in the form of the competitors, the customers, the consumers, the government agencies, the customers' feedback, the intermediaries who are there, because at certain point of time you are giving them a motivation, you are persuading out the intermediaries also to housing in your offerings, to housing in your new offerings. There may be intermediaries who are working in the form of the distributors, dealers and retailers are there. So, they are also the people who are giving you the inputs, they are sensing out the needs and the expectations of the customers, and they are in a position to give out the inputs to that will be acting as a greater mechanism to translate into the concrete results with the formulation of a new product. So, with this I am ending up my session here only, and here in this session we have discussed only with the very first point that was being related within a idea generation, and these idea generation was being classified in two of the forms. Either we can have an internal way, either we can go in for the external way for the purpose of launching out a new development process of the product, that is in case of the services. There are other points to discuss upon, and the next session we will be dealing with other points in the next slide. So, I hope that you have understood the very first step, the very first stage of the development of the new services, which was being talked of in the sense of the idea generation. Till then, stay safe and stay blessed, and thank you all for joining. We will be meeting in the next session with the other sequential steps. Thank you all.